Hello, this is Anna Amelia from Northeast Animal Rights. We have been doing a series of interviews with high-profile celebrity vegans and animal rights activists, but I thought I'd shift the focus a little bit and talk to our members in the group and local animal rights activists as well, just to talk about their journey, why they became vegan, and also talk about how they see the movement progressing as well. So this is Kevin Parke, who is a very new member of Northeast Animal Rights. He's also a plant-powered dad as well. So we just want to talk to him. Got a few questions for him. So without further ado, I'm going to start asking the questions, if that's okay. Right. So the first thing is, tell me about why and how you became vegan. Do you wish you become vegan sooner, or was it the time not right for you?
I think the timing was right, but I definitely wish I became vegan sooner.
Yeah.
I think we see a lot of vegans, everyone says the kind of the same thing. I wish they kind of saw the light a lot sooner in their journey. But I didn't really go vegan straight away. I went more plant-based. I was very much a big kind of meat eater before I went vegan. Watched Game Changers and thought, actually, there might be some truth in kind of what these guys are saying about healthy diet and being more plant-based. So I thought, well, I'll slip in a couple of, meat-free days here and there. And then when I came to planning me menu, if you will, for the week, I realized it was pretty hard to make things that were so plant-based or omnivorous. So I just thought, well, I'm going to do 1 or 2 days. By the time I buy, a carton of oat milk that's going to go off before I use it again, I may as well just go all out. So luckily, my wife just watched the same program, decided she was going to do the same thing. But I get a bit fitter, a bit healthier. So we went plant-based, and then I suppose once you kind of lift the shutters, when you're seeing things like animal activists talking about animal rights, having really good quality conversations on the street with random members of the public, and you hear the arguments that they put forward, you start the cogs moving. And I was hearing some things and seeing some documentaries at the time that I didn't really believe. So I started thinking, right, well, I'm a very logical thinker. So if I can prove something to be true in my own mind, I'll believe it. So I thought, when you see things like Dominion, Earthlings, Land of Hope and Glory, I was thinking, well, these have got to be the extreme examples. So I did my own research into farming practices and realized that actually these were actually high welfare standards. I just crossed the line, and I was like, absolutely no way will I ever eat or use any animal paste ever again. And I suppose it kind of stemmed from there, really. Yeah, originally I was plant-based, and then it was only a month or so into not eating meat that I got curious and started watching these exposés, and then thought, well, gotta be wrong, it can't be right. How can this be going on and no one really know about it? Then, like I say, when you don't have that brick wall barrier up anymore, because you're not contributing, even if you're not contributing towards it for the animals at that point, you're a lot more likely to actually take it in and understand it. When I did my own research into accepted welfare standards and realized that actually there's nothing really extreme about what they're showing, and it happens in every large-scale farm. I thought that was something that me and my family can't contribute to anymore.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
a bit like the RSPC red tractor assured schemes, sort of those things where they're obviously supposed to be high welfare, but obviously they've been outed by Viva for hogwood and all sorts of different things. So you're right. I mean, the standard practices is pretty low welfare.
And I mean, even very recently been outed again for another pig farm in Leicester, which had starving pigs there. I mean, how was that high welfare?
Yeah. So what was the hardest part of becoming a vegan, and what's the hardest part for you staying vegan, or is there a hard part for staying vegan?
I think the hardest part about becoming vegan, or at least plant-based in the beginning, is that like every other ignorant person out there who's never tried vegan and never thought about going vegan, and actually thought fairly negatively about most vegan things, I thought I was going to be living off, like salads, twigs and dust, pretty much. No,
grass and twigs.
Initially, yeah, grass and twigs. That's what I say to the lads at work when they're taking the mick out of things I bring in, because I'll bring vegan meals into work and stuff, like vegan cakes and stuff. It's amazing what you can make from grass and twigs, isn't it? Yeah, I think the hardest thing to begin with was actually the preparation to do it. Or it was knowing what to eat and knowing where to get your nutrition from, because you know, in my mind, I did a bit of bodybuilding when I was younger. So in my mind, it was you get your protein from your eggs, your milk, and your meat. If it doesn't breathe, it doesn't give you protein. If it grows in the ground, it gives you carbs. That was kind of the mentality from gaining weight, and that's what I believed through my entire adult life. And then when I did a bit of research and dug in, discovered that you can get everything you need from very little, to be fair. So you know, beans, all that sort of stuff. And actually, you're not just going to be eating, you know, beans and rice. You know, you could essentially make beans and rice, but it's a chili. You know, and it's still beans and rice, but it's chili. And it's just as good as the stuff that's got the meat in it. And you're not really, it's not anything. So, yeah, there's that. And I think the hardest thing about staying vegan, I don't think there is a hard thing. I would say there's, it's the fact that when you go somewhere that you're not familiar with, and you haven't necessarily prepared to be out all day. I used to yesterday.
You mean like yesterday?
Yeah, down South Shields. I know South Shields not been out there like a full day since going vegan, really. And if we have, it's been like to a family's place or something. So we were down there yesterday, went to the park, met up with a couple of my wife's friends that live down the country. We were up, took the kids to the park. They were going for some food. And so I thought, well, where can I go? And when I started looking at the local area, I looked on Happy Cow, and there was very, very little in the area. And the ones that were vegan listed on Happy Cow either weren't open or were chocker. So there's I suppose it's, we ended up going to McDonald's and getting veggie dippers for the kids, just because we'd had Greg's the day before and we just didn't want to get Greg's again. But yeah, I suppose it's when you're not prepared, it can be built if you're in an area you don't know. Now, I suppose it would in the centre of Newcastle would be absolutely fine because Newcastle's like an absolute hub for veganism. Whereas once you branch out of being a city, it can be a little bit more. Getting better, but it can be a little bit more.
I suppose, I mean, I know obviously when we were telling you different places to go, I mean, a lot of places you had to book ahead as well, like Platform 33. I mean, Cafe Nero and Costa have little snacks in. But there's Kirkpatrick's do burgers, there's Minchella's do the ice cream and everything. But if you don't know the area, you're pretty stuck, you know. And they're not all necessarily coming up in Happy Cow either.
And getting meals for kids, because you can get a vegetarian option, but no one does a vegan option because there's very few vegan kids. So yes, me and my wife could have a meal somewhere, but what are the kids going to have? You know, the kids aren't going to eat like a full-on vegan pizza full of obviously all that sort of stuff, because they still very much want a pepperoni pizza, obviously just without the meat on.
Yeah. So what was your attitude towards veganism before you transitioned? And no, I'm asking you this question because one of the first things you said to me was that you were one of these people who used to go past the store and shout, bacon.
I actually did that once. Didn't shout it, but muttered it under my breath as I was passing it, Anonymous to the Voiceless in Newcastle City Centre. This was probably 6 or 7 years ago. They were doing a queue. Didn't know what it was at the time. Never heard of Anonymous. And they were doing a cube, had the TVs on, and as I walked past, I kind of made a comment about how it's extreme and how it's just the bad eggs, and that I like bacon too much to ever go vegetarian, let alone vegan. And then I get a bit older, got a bit wiser, and yeah, I mean, even to the point of, you know, like November last year before I was vegan, if I watched videos by Dewey Carpstrong, I used to think he was a bit OTT. I used to watch videos by Fling Ed just because they pop up on my newsfeed, you know, when they were in the kind of tabloids and stuff. You know, militant vegan attacks a young girl in the street or something, and it's just them having a conversation. And I would very much have the blinkers on and think that these guys are just filling people's head full of propaganda. Dewey Carpstrong was very militant in the way that he approached things and very aggressive with the way that he approached people, and ultimately it was their choice whether they would eat meat or not. So I suppose I was a typical kind of run-of-the-mill, everyday Joe. I didn't really have a really negative thought about vegans, but the ones that I had seen, because I didn't know any, were the ones that kind of get the tabloids, if you will. Dewey Carpstrong mainly, because he's the kind of bad boy of veganism. He's good to get on the TV because he kind of goes all in, doesn't he? So I suppose that was the only vision I had of them. And then I had the view of, why would you want to eat meat replacements? If you don't want to eat meat, would you not just want to steam veg all day? So yeah, I suppose I was your typical kind of not anti-vegan, but ignorant, I would say, very, very ignorant.
Yeah. So how easy is it for your family to be vegan? I know obviously eating out yesterday was a problem, but just generally, do you get criticised for bringing your children up vegan, and how much do they understand about what they're eating?
Well, James is only, he's not 2 yet. So he's like a year and 10 months. So he knows nothing. Oh, he's sticking it under his nose and he'll chew on it, to be fair. It doesn't matter what it is. But Freddie, he's coming to 5 this month. So he is very much aware of what he's eating. So the plan wasn't initially to have an entirely vegan family. Like I say, we were only going to go plant-based for our own health. So once we got a grasp on what we're eating, we discovered that we could eat really good food. And we then became vegan, if you will. Our mindset and point of view and belief system became vegan. We felt wrong going and buying meat products and milk for the kids. So we secretly phased out a few things that we could. We tried some vegan sausages because we knew that they were very good anyway. So I thought that's a good place to start. And we tried a couple of different milks with the kids just to see what they're like. And it turns out that actually Freddie prefers a milk to drink to a milk to put on cereal, which is kind of great because you've got more than one option now. And then one day, my wife was taking me down to work, and we drive past if you will, it's a beef farm, and we live out in the countryside a little bit in Durham. So it's when you think of what a beef farm would be, you know, cows out of pasture all day and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like that. So we drive past the cows on the way back from dropping me off at work. Freddie asked how cows make milk. So she told him in a very age-appropriate manner that a cow has to have a baby. The baby's then taken from the mom so that we can have the milk to drink ourselves. If the baby's a boy, the baby will go off and become a hamburger. If the baby's a girl, the baby would grow up, have a baby herself. Her baby will be taken away, and we'll get milk from that cow. And my wife still breastfeeds James, and she has his entire life. And I think that's really, really set in with me. She's seen the similarity straight away and actually said that he didn't think that was very nice, because if somebody came and took James away from us, then we'd all be sad. So he doesn't drink milk anymore because it's causing suffering in his own eyes. He can kind of understand that, I suppose. Might have been a little bit different if Tammy wasn't breastfeeding, but she does, and help them to see the link, that direct link through how the baby cow would feel and how the mommy cow would feel in his own eyes. And since then, it's just little things like when we're in the supermarket and he asks what something is it doesn't look like a part of a dead animal. So chicken breasts, we tell him that it's a piece of a dead chicken that someone's cut off to eat, and he's just horrified. And we say kind of as a matter of fact, if you want to eat meat, then an animal has to die so you can eat part of their body. We don't go into the absolute horror stories of what happens, but in a way that he understands it's not going to scar him for life. We've allowed him to make, to a point, his own decision. I don't think having a vegan diet at his age is going to, it's not going to hold him back at all. And I don't think that not having a vegan diet at this point in life would hold him back in his development at all. But what it will do is it'll change his mindset for the rest of his life, which is more, for me, it's the more important thing. Is I didn't feel right buying him meat products, and I didn't feel right teaching him the same things that I was taught when I was young. And I've very much always said that I'll always bring my kids up to make their own decisions ultimately. So if he doesn't want to be vegan in the future, and he does make the decision to start eating meat again, then we'll have a really good conversation about it. And you know, I'll probably respect his decision to do that, although he will be reminded numerously exactly what his choice is called.
You probably find him a new home.
Yeah, well, to be fair, we've had a conversation. His mates were going to McDonald's, and he's sat there with his veggie dippers. He's going to be like, yeah, woo. And peer pressure might sit in. So at that age, I think he'll be old enough to really see things like Dominion and that sort of thing. So I'm like, okay, well, it's, you know, your choice is going to lead to this. As long as you're aware of it leading to this and you're not being ignorant about it, you can make an informed decision.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's you've made raised a couple of interesting points there, because for one thing, when he's that age, there'll be so many more vegans around. It'll be, I mean, it's I would say it's mainstream now in terms of everybody knows what vegan is, but 10 years ahead, it's going to be even more so. But also, I know places like KFC and McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's vegan burgers are not actually vegan because they're cooked in the same fat, but I know that places like KFC, they, people get criticised for going in to get those, but I think it's always a good way in. I would never go in myself to buy one, but it's a good way in for kids who are in a group and you've got peer pressure, so they can actually sit in with their friends and have a vegan burger, and then maybe influence their friends that way.
yeah, well, funnily enough, my niece is here at the minute as well, and her dad was asking, like, if you're going to be vegan, why do you want to eat beef? Why do you want beef replacement? Why do you want to have a hamburger replacement? Why do you want mock meat? My response there was, for people like your dad who doesn't want to not eat meat, it's a way to show them, actually, if you want this, you can have this, and it itches the scratch for this. So, and it doesn't cause all the pain that causes. And she kind of got it, I suppose. She understood why we went out today, and we had some decent vegan burgers. Got a try of a couple of the ones that we had. We had like a Hoinsong duck burger, and I just had a kind of good old beef burger, style burger. And she kind of couldn't believe that there wasn't any meat in it at all.
So, under it's not controversial, but it's something which is pretty noticeable in the vegan world. There are far less vegan men than women. So why do you think that is? And what would you say to a man, somebody who you knew was currently considering it, looking for that final push?
Well, I probably work in the most overly masculine environment that you can imagine. I work in a motor trade with a lot of traders. And my experience is probably the masculinity side of it. You need to be manly, you need to eat meat and be a man. So I think it's the stigma attached to it. I think it's the masculinity of potentially the vision of eating meat in their own mind and stuff. And for the last 100 years, probably, we've been having it shoveled into our faces that, you manly men eat meat. That was one of the big adverts when I was little. And that to grow muscle, you've got to eat animals because you need the protein from the meat, which couldn't be further from the truth. So I think it's a lot about they'll feel demasculinized if they stop eating meat. And I think a little bit of peer pressure as well. A lot of peer pressure, in fact. Since I went vegan, obviously, the lads in the office take the nick out of me, something wrong. It is in good faith, and there's no malice in it whatsoever. But if I was in the stronger willed character as I am, and I was having a really bad day, that could potentially set us down a track to fail, possibly. But I think it's the masculinity side of it. But if I knew of anyone that was, my next door neighbour actually was wanting to give it a push, and I just told him to do it, and I kind of got him on the hook by sending over fantastic food every time I cooked it. So we now have the fence of fantastic food, as it's known in our houses, because every single time we cook something new, it's funny actually. We've got like a broomstick outside, and we just tap on his window, and we'll come running made. So and then I was giving him loads, just like vegan food, and we're more plant based. I would say we don't eat a lot of mock meat in the house. So when we make a chili, we don't use the vegan mince. We use like lentils and free bean chilies and that sort of thing. So I was saying that his way, and he initially went vegetarian because he thought his wife, his partner, went vegetarian as well at the same time, because they thought cutting out the milk and the eggs was going to be really difficult. But when he was cooking, he was noticing he wasn't using milk and eggs at all anyway. And he probably about 4 weeks in went plant-based. And he was plant-based for your health. And he's starting to say things like, someone made him a cup of tea the other day at work, and he added black because they had no plant milk, and he didn't take anything with him because he couldn't stomach the idea of a cow being taken away from its mother in order for him to have milk. And I was like, I thought you were plant-based for your health, not for the animals. He's like, yeah, it's funny how it kind of shifts, isn't it? So it's funny because he's about 9 months behind me, but I can kind of see my journey evolving in him. So yeah, it's my advice would be, if you know any vegans that can cook, go for food, experience what they eat. Just like a Wednesday night meal, nothing fancy. and give it a go. Try challenge 22. Do it whatever way you need to. Ease yourself in, or jump in with both feet. But do it. You'll feel better for it, and you're going to cause a lot of harm with the animals in the air.
So I know that obviously you love your cooking, but obviously we've seen your menus on some of our chats. So what's your go-to meal when you want something just easy and like comfort food? What's the first thing you do?
Oh, it's funny, right? Because I've never cooked this meal before I went vegan. But then I went vegan and noticed that everyone was cooking this. Everyone cooks this meal. Mac and cheese is me go-to, quick and easy. Chuck it in the blender. Do your pasta. 10 minutes down the line, it's done. Pour it over. Quick heat up. It's sorted. Ideal for the kids.
Yeah.
Kids absolutely love it. Their go-to meal. We chuck a little bit of chili in when we do ours to make it a little bit spicier. But yeah, if you're kind of, one of those days where you've not really, you go to make something and the thing that you bought, like you might be doing mushroom shawarmas, but the mushrooms aren't quite the way they should be on them. Maybe the last day of their in date. You've got nothing else in, you can't think of what else to make. Just boil some pasta, chuck your mac and cheese in the blender, boom, done, 10 minutes down the line. And like I say, it's ideal if you get held up with the kids. It's their favourite meal. If we're ever struggling to get kids to eat something, we'll just scrap what we're trying to do and we'll just do mac and cheese because it's quick, it's easy, and we'll guarantee that they're going to eat it.
Yeah,
so
it's when people who have been vegan for a long time, they've had like stepped holy grails. It's kind of like my holy grail at the moment is trying to get vegan macaroons, which I was hunting around yesterday for the festival. But then before that, it's like mac and cheese, and then before that, it's making meringues. So there's loads of little things, and looking back, sort of like 7 or 8 years ago, it was cheese, trying to find good quality cheese. But now there's loads of cheeses everywhere, and like you said, mac and cheese is a dead easy one to go because everybody loves mac and cheese.
Yes, cheese. It's I suppose you're spoiled for choice for cheese now, but it's one of those things, isn't it? You've got to try probably 20 or 30 different brands before you find the one that's going to work for you.
Yeah. So how do you feel? How do you feel since you've converted, mentally and physically? I mean, do you feel worse, better physically and mentally?
Yeah. So I initially thought I was going to lose loads of weight before I went vegan, and then discovered all of the fantastic vegan comfort food that you can make, and I just kind of stayed the same. We noticed pretty early on that when you do eat a big meal, we eat a lot of chili type foods. I do like loaded fries, loaded nachos. I do chili on its own, quite like Mexican style food. And it can be quite heavy when you're having a non-vegan version. But when you're eating it and it's just full of plants, there's nothing to weigh you down. So you don't get the bloating. You don't feel sluggish the next day. You just feel lighter, I would say. Your digestive system's not working overtime to try and digest all of this raw meat in your stomach. I definitely feel better in myself, 100%. We noticed about 3 or 4 days in that we just felt so much, uplifted, I would say. And that helped, obviously, to just steady the course. Once we started feeling better, we were like, well, actually, there's something in this. And then we kind of steadied the course, I suppose, and instilled that what we were doing was going to be right. I definitely feel better. Mentally, I never really give much thought to what happened in agriculture. I thought I knew. And I always used to say this, because I watched a good few years ago, Channel 4, Catch It, Kill It, Cook It. It was on Channel 4. And it was, they had a mock abattoir set up there, and it was leading lambs and all sorts in. And I watched all that, and it didn't faze us. But that's not the reality of what happens. I mean, even that is abhorrent now that I think back, but that's not the reality of what happens. So I thought because of this thing, I was educated and I knew what was happening and I knew what I was contributing towards. But for me, it's not even a slaughterhouse, because at the end of the day, a slaughterhouse has got a kill floor. A kill floor, you know exactly what's happening there. The animals are being killed. It's the run-up from birth all the way up to that point that you don't know about. It's the abhorrent conditions that a lot of these farms have got. And that, for me, was the more eye-opening thing. So I suppose mentally from what happens, I suppose I do feel better now, but I didn't really give it that much thought, rather ignorantly. But I think it's very important that we do remind ourselves of what happens. So, you know, people, that's why I continuously watch these exposés that come out and stuff. And I'm like, well, because if I forget it's there, then I'll be less likely to care as much. So I also think it's really important to keep an eye on the good news stories that we have. So the things that you guys do on a daily basis. So just the little things like helping out in animal rescue centres. Obviously, what you're doing at the minute with the seagulls and South Shields. Although I'm sure there'll be a good outcome to that. Obviously, we're steadying the course with that at the minute. And then things like, you know, like watching Joey Carbstrong go to an animal sanctuary. You know, the hard man of veganism. You know, he's ex-gangster till he gets cuddles with a pig, and then he just turns into this absolute soppy mess. But I think it's really important to get that balance right.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we've also got to manage our own well-being and mental health as well, because we do see some awful things, and you've got to try. And I'm a relentlessly positive person, and you've got to always look at the positive side of it. And you've also got to recognise when you've seen too much, and you've got to, you know, you need some support to step away. Particularly when we do things like the saves. I mean, the saves are pretty grim. You can't have a little sing-song outside. It's just awful. So you've got to remember why you're doing them, you know, but you've also got to remember that you can't do too many of them as well. Yeah. So Plant Powered Dad then, right? I know that obviously you've got your Plant Powered Dad Instagram page. So tell me what's going on with that, and how has that come about?
Yeah, so it's fairly new, and it's just I suppose a little bit about my plant-based lifestyle. I'm going to be I've got one recipe on there at the minute, some takeaway style vegan pizzas that we did, more based the sort of the sauces to go with it, because you just chuck what you like on a pizza, to be fair. I'm not going to tell you how to do your pizza that you like. But yeah, I've got plans on making things like just the chilies that we make, just the everyday food kind of food, and putting them on like the little stories that you can put on Instagram. So if you want to have your takeout style food, you can click here. If you want some Mexican style food, you can click there. Italian style food, you can click there. But yeah, it's very much a work in progress, but I'm updating it quite regularly.
Yeah. So what's the Instagram? How do you access it? What's the name?
Yeah, just search at Plant Powered Dad, all one word, and it'll pop up. Yeah, I think for me, it's I think from if you will, an advocacy point of view and an activism point of view, I think it's important to hold people to account, like I was, totally not really ignorant of what was going on. But I also don't think that the right way in always is the Joey Carbstrong, if you will, direction all the time when he's full on anyway. So Plant Powered Dad's kind of a little bit of, it's kind of for the people that kind of think, ooh, plant-based, might give that a go. So I chuck some of the recipes that I do on there. And also throwing just a little bit about the industry on there as well, you know, a little bit of vegan message. So yeah, I
think you're right. I think sometimes people see the word vegan, they don't like the word vegan, and I think plant-based is a softer approach. Obviously, we understand in the activism world, vegan is a lifestyle, plant-based is a diet, but I think it's a very, very good route, because bizarrely people see vegans as extreme sometimes. You know, you're talking about Joey Carbstrong and, you know, this guy Yorofsky, Earthling Ed, all have very, very different success rates, but very different approaches. My sort of route is much more the Earthling Ed way, you know, kind of much more educational, sort of like it's maybe slower, but it's not confrontational, but at the same time he stands his ground when he needs to, you know. But yeah, I think you're right, it's all bits of everything really. I mean, that's what we try to do on our page, you know, sort of like little things, local community things and information, and, you know, try to keep it interesting. And so Plant Powered Dad as well is another really, really good way of approaching it.
Yeah, I think for me, the name of it strikes, obviously it's plant-based, so you got your plant. Not gonna lie, I am probably aiming it more towards bloked, because I'm a dad, so I'm gonna have something in common. And the power is just to kind of break down that barrier of weak or vegan, if you will. So it's all going to be fairly healthy and stuff. But yeah, I think there is different ways in with different people. Some people need to have a stern arm put around them, and some people need to have, you know, a more of a, just, you know, a comforting arm put around them and direct them the right way. I'm trying to base the way I advocate a bit more like James Aspey, just positively in humour, because I think that breaks down the barrier. If no one can argue back with you, if they can't argue back and you can't allow them to get annoyed, then I don't think there's any way that people can't hear the message. Whereas as soon as them brick walls go up, that's it. Oof, walk away from the conversation because you're done. You're not going to get through. So, but yeah, it's a bit like sales. You need to read the person that you're talking to and work out what the best in is in that direction.
So does this mean that next time I talk to you, your page, you're going to be so famous, I'm going to have to give you a fee for appearing now, am I?
Yeah, well, you have been called Earthling Kev. So,
Earthling Kev. You'll have to go a man bun though. Your hair's far too short for you need to get a man bun. And the turtleneck sweater as well.
Yeah, let's do it. I thought it'd be a good idea to let me. My wife shaved my head during lockdown because all the barbers were shut, and she did what she thought was a grade 1, and it was a grade 0. So I thought I'd go from one extreme to the other. So I was going to grow it and just let it grow. See what
it's looking very nice. Well, thank you very much, and that's all the questions I've got for you. It's been really, really fascinating talking to you, and it's lovely also to sort of see different points of view from people who, obviously the people I've talked to quite a lot of people who've been vegan for a long, long time. But it's great to see somebody who hasn't been vegan that long but so passionate about it as well. And I know you're going to be a really, really good advocate for the animals, and it's going to be absolutely brilliant working with you as well. So thank you very much for giving us your time today. And hopefully we'll have a lot of people watching this interview, and we're going to put it on the page in a few weeks' time. So I will put little notices on the page to let people know when it's coming on. Okay. So thank you very much. This is Anna from Northeast Animal Rights, talking to Kevin Parke, also from Northeast Animal Rights. So bye for now.
Bye.